Saturday morning. I had just poured my first cup of coffee, watching the steam rise into the gray Oregon sky, when my phone rang. The caller was Bennett West, the real estate agent I had dealt with years ago, the man who had helped me find the place that was now mine. He said in a cautious voice, "Hello, Naomi, I have a quick question. Are you selling your cottage?" My hand froze on the cup. "No. Why?" "There's an advertisement for your mountain property near Bend. Same pictures, same land area. The ad is posted now, but the contact number isn't yours." A sharp, cold sensation ran down my spine. "Whose number is this?" He hesitated a little. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but I changed my mind. "It's a woman named Gloria Carver. My mom." I didn't say a word for a few seconds. The silence was so profound that I could hear the ticking of the clock above the stove. Bennett added gently, "I'll send you the link. I thought I'd check with you first before taking any steps." After we ended the call, I opened the message. Here it was. My cottage, my name omitted, but every other detail was accurate. Photos I'd never taken. A description crafted with enough precision to sound real. "A tranquil mountain retreat," it said. "Available for private viewing." My mother's number was at the bottom, in bold and public, as if she had every right to it. I didn't feel anger yet, but rather a hollow, rising pressure in my chest, as if the ground beneath something sacred was beginning to crack. I put down the phone, went to the sink, and stood staring out the window, my knuckles calloused on the countertop. My mother was trying to sell my house. I picked up the phone again and called her. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Hello, dear," the mother said in a voice full of that artificial warmth she reserved when she knew she was in trouble. "How was your weekend?" I asked without any pretense. Why was my cabinet listed on the internet? Then he paused for a moment and then said in the same tone, "Oh, I saw that. You have put my property up for sale." "Well, your father and I thought this was best," she said, drawing out the word as if it needed softening. "You're so busy, Naomi, you hardly ever use it anymore. This is not your decision." Another silence. I heard her settle down in the kitchen chair. "This is for Tessa. She's pregnant. She and Lucas need a place. They're getting too cramped in that little house. You know how expensive things are now." My jaw tightened. She said clearly, "You didn't ask me because you would have refused. We're not trying to hurt you. She's family. She needs help. You always help." I closed my eyes. "You have no right to sell it." She quickly said, "We're not doing anything illegal. We have copies of your ID, your tax forms, and old documents with your signature. We can handle the paperwork if that's what's bothering you." I stared at the wall opposite me as if it were about to split open. "Do you mean you're going to visit my name?" She said gently, as if explaining something logical to a child. "It's easier this way. And we know you'll understand. Once you calm down, you're always the one in charge." She said it as if it were a compliment. Before I could reply, I heard my dad's voice in the background. "Is she upset?" My mom covered the phone, saying, "It's okay, I'm handling it." I ended the call. Then I opened my laptop and searched for Bennett's number again. I didn't call Bennett right away. Instead, I sat there with my computer open, the cursor blinking over a blank email draft. My hands hovered over the keys, but I still couldn't type. Not amidst the wave of memories that suddenly washed over me. It wasn't just about the cabin, but the way they always presented it. "You are a very responsible person." The same words they used to convince me to pay for Tessa's final 2 semesters of college when her scholarship fell through. The same words they used when her wedding budget spiraled out of control, and I wrote a check to cover the difference because she deserved a perfect day. The first time I agreed to help with a mortgage payment was when my dad was laid off from his job. I told myself it was temporary. They promised they'd pay me back. That was almost 3 years ago. $800 a month. Automatically withdrawn. Quietly taken away. Never mentioned. Not even me. Because that's how I was raised. Quiet, dependable, someone who fixes things without being asked. The giving daughter. Not the one who wonders why no one returns the favor. I thought it was love. That putting in extra effort meant I was a good person. That being the most level-headed was a kind of honor. But as I sat there, realizing they were plotting to forge my signature and sell the only thing I truly owned, I saw the truth clearly for the first time. This wasn't love. It was control, softened by years of obliging and polite smiles. I opened my bank app and turned off automatic payments. Then I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and called Bennett. Ben Tread rang the second ring. "Naomi, is everything all right?" he said in a steady but curious voice. I said, "No, but I need your help. I want to sell the cottage." Silence. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Quickly if possible." "When can we finalize the deal if everything goes well?" "Well, if the buyer has cash and financing ready, then maybe 10 days. "Why? Do you remember that sheriff you mentioned? Is he still interested?" "Yes, Austin Ree. I've been looking for a place like yours for months. I live in Sisters. Quiet guy. Steady income. Pre-approved." "Okay. I'll reduce the asking price by 10,000 and add a bonus to your commission if we can complete the deal before next Friday. Bentisher says, "You're serious." In all seriousness. Okay, I'll make the call. After we ended the call, I turned my laptop back on. I wasn't finished yet. I logged into the shared access account I'd opened with my parents years ago when my father had surgery and needed help managing the bills. The account was still in my name, still giving them access to my money. I revoked that access. Then I reviewed all my accounts one by one, scrutinizing anything they might still be monitoring. Insurance, shared data, tax documents they were handling on my behalf. I shut every door they had opened for me under the guise of helping. When I finished, it was past midnight, but I didn't feel tired. There was something cold and focused inside me now, like a taut thread. They had been moving stealthily, quietly making plans and justifying them with the help of the family. They thought I would give in as usual. But instead, I moved faster. When Bennett called me the next morning, he sounded full of energy. He said, he's agreed. The price is the full amount after your discount. And he wants to finalize the deal as soon as he passes the checks. I said, do that. Send me what you need. The following days were a jumble of documents, signatures, and phone calls. I told no one, not my friends, not my colleagues, not even my aunt. Who would have understood? I wasn't looking for advice. I was quietly, legally, and without permission reclaiming something. By Thursday afternoon, the title deed had been registered, the money disbursed, and the cottage was no longer mine. But it certainly wasn't theirs either. 2 weeks passed with nothing but silence. No calls, no voicemails, not even one of those guilty messages from my mother. For a while, I allowed myself to believe that maybe they'd moved on. Maybe they'd found another way to provide Tessa's dream apartment. Maybe they'd realized what they were doing and broken up quietly. Then on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was my mother. I let it ring twice before I answered. Welcome. Her voice was sharp, panicked, and louder than usual. Naomi, what's going on? We went up to the cabin with a couple who wanted to see the place. And the locks, someone changed them. None of our keys work. I pressed the phone even harder to my ear, even though I already knew what I was going to say. I know. Did you change it? Why? We have people willing to buy it. I said, this is no longer my home. Silence fell. Then she laughed, but it was a broken laugh, reflecting more tension than humor. Very funny. But seriously, the buyers are upset, and your father is furious. This is making things more complicated than they need to be. I said calmly, I'm not joking. I sold the house last week. The new owners installed those locks. The silence lasted a long time this time. I imagined her face, her mouth opening and closing, as she tried to process the fact that I had moved faster than she expected. Finally, she said, What? You heard me. Without even telling us? Her voice broke. Naomi, how could you do something so malicious? I said, I didn't do it out of spite, but because it was mine, and I was tired of pretending that I owed it to you. She started to say something else, but I didn't wait to hear it. I pressed the end call button and slammed the phone down on the counter. My hands trembled for a few seconds as my body recovered from the adrenaline rush that had paralyzed me throughout the call. But then an eerie, unexpected silence fell. For the first time in years, I genuinely said no. They couldn't force me to back down. It was over. The money was already being used to pay off my debts. I had acted without permission, and there would be no apologies. I stood in the kitchen for a while, enveloped in silence like a shield. Then the phone rang again. This time it was Tessa. I let Tessa's call go to voicemail the first 2 times, but it wouldn't stop. On the 4th attempt, I answered, mostly out of curiosity. Naomi, what the hell is going on? She said sharply, without any greeting or pause. My mom just called me crying about the locks and the buyers who pulled out. What did you do? I said calmly. I sold the house. There was a moment of silence. Then someone said, This is unbelievable. I'm completely serious. The house is no longer mine. You haven't even told anyone. Her voice rose now. We've been planning this for months. I've already picked out an apartment. I hired an interior designer to help with the children's room. We told people we were moving to a new place. So, you shouldn't have built your future on something that doesn't belong to you. She cut herself off. You don't understand. I'm pregnant. Yes, Tessa, I know. But that doesn't make it my responsibility. Another silence fell. Then her voice softened, becoming the tone she used when she wanted something. We just needed a little help. Dale, you've always been the one in charge. Mom said you'd understand. I let out a calm breath. Find out the same way we all do. Her tone returned to its usual harshness. You're cruel. I said, No, I'm explaining it now. A long, heavy silence followed. Then she muttered something between her breaths and hung up. I stood there, the phone still in my hand, not trembling this time, not even angry, just tired of being everyone's go-to person. They'd built their entire plan on my compliance. They assumed I'd give in because I always had, but they never asked what would happen if I didn't. I didn't feel guilty about the silence that followed her call. It felt like a door was closing. Not forcefully, just slamming shut. 2 more days passed without a word. Then Bennett called again. This time it wasn't about documents or inspections. He said, "Naomi, you won't believe what happened." Bennett said cautiously, "Naomi, the police chief just called me. He's your buyer. There was a break-in at the cottage over the weekend." My stomach clenched. "Is he okay?" He wasn't there, but the alarm went off. The cameras recorded everything. The man tried to force open the back door using a lever, then walked around trying to open the windows. I already knew that before he said it. "It was your father." I closed my eyes. He was arrested. The police chief recognized him from the official papers and contacted the local police instead of handling the matter himself. He said he wanted things to remain legal. I whispered, "Of course, thank you for telling me." Bennett added, "I'm sorry. I wish I could say I was surprised." We hung up, and I sat silently until my phone rang again. This time it was my mother. "Naomi, you need to fix this," she shouted before I could say a word. "Your father was just trying to get into your property. He didn't know it had already been sold. Call the police. Tell him it was a misunderstanding." I said, "It's not a misunderstanding. He thought you were joking," she said desperately. "We didn't think you would actually do it. You posted the advertisement online. You were arranging appointments for viewings. You intended to forge my signature. And now you're shocked that I didn't let you get away with it? Don't be harsh. He's your father." I said, "No, he's a man who deliberately broke into someone else's house after being told it wasn't his. He may go to jail, but he made that decision." She whispered, "You are heartless." "No, I'm done." I hung up and turned off my device. There was nothing to explain. They hadn't misunderstood anything. They knew exactly what they were doing. They never imagined I would ultimately refuse. And this time, no one could change my mind. It wasn't long before the news spread. Small town, small circles. The sheriff didn't press charges of trespassing, but my father didn't escape punishment. The incident was recorded in an official report. Within a week, his employer, the mall's security, found out. They quietly terminated him. There was no confrontation, just a termination letter and a meager severance package. My mother stopped calling after that. For several weeks, there was silence again. Then Aunt June contacted me. She didn't lecture me as she never had. She simply told me the facts. They've exhausted most of their savings. Legal fees, paying off debts to people. And Tessa and Lucas have moved in with them. She almost burst out laughing when she heard that part. The dream apartment had vanished, and now the pampered girl was back in her childhood bedroom, pregnant and married, trapped between 2 people falling apart. "They're not doing well," June said gently. "Your mother works longer hours at the grocery store. Tessa complains a lot. And your father? He can't handle free time." I thanked her for informing me, but I didn't ask for any further information. They always spoke of family as if it were an obligation, as if helping them was a sign of love. But now that I was out of control, everything started to fall apart. And I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. For years, I believed my role in the family was essential, and that they would fall apart if I stepped aside. It turned out I was right. But instead of feeling needed, I simply felt free. I prepared dinner alone that night, played music softly, and turned off my phone. I felt no urge to save anyone. I felt no urge to apologize. The next morning, I woke up without fear and booked my first appointment for psychotherapy. The first session was difficult. I sat on the sofa, not knowing where to begin, staring at a framed photograph of a tree on the bookshelf as if it would inspire the words I couldn't find. Dr. Hart didn't rush me. She waited for me. I told her everything. Hesitantly at first, then all at once. The cottage, the sham sale, the wedding money, the monthly installments, and the silence I always maintained because making a fuss was considered a betrayal. She listened without blinking. When I finally stopped talking, she said, "You weren't their daughter, Naomi. You were their emergency fund." I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, something inside me suddenly opened, like a key turning in the right lock after years of trying to open the wrong one. We talked about boundaries, patterns, and the long, quiet upbringing that teaches you that love and religion are one and the same. I gave it a name, financial exploitation. And it was an accurate description. I went home afterwards and sat in the living room for a long time. No television, no music, just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the traffic outside my window. I looked around. It wasn't big, it wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. And I let the silence seep into me. That night, I slept soundly and didn't wake up. No midnight text messages, no bank alerts, no weight in my chest reminding me that someone somewhere was disappointed because I hadn't solved their problem. For the first time in years, I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't the one carrying other people's burdens. And I began to wonder what it would be like if I carried my own burdens alone. Months later, I was walking down a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, my hands in my coat pockets, my eyes wandering across the yard. The house was small and modest, but it had a garden, nothing more than a patch of dirt now. But I could already imagine lavender and basil growing there, and maybe even tomatoes if I dared. The real estate agent opened the door and let me in first. The floors creaked. The kitchen smelled like lemon polish. No granite countertops, no vaulted ceilings, just a completely empty space, untouched by anyone's expectations. I didn't need to call anyone for advice. 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. The house became mine. After that, I bought a used Toyota. A reliable car, nothing fancy. My old car had completely broken down. And for the first time, replacing it didn't mean cutting back on food or falling behind on rent. I paid for it outright. No loan, no guarantor, no family support. I now set aside a sum of money each month. Not for emergencies caused by others, but for things I actually want. A weekend trip to the coast, a course in weed cultivation, and maybe a new mattress. My bank account is no longer just a means to meet other people's needs. It's my own. Silence used to weigh heavily on my life. Now it's like air. No urgent calls, no messages of guilt, no obligations burdening me at every turn. I wake up, I work, I prepare dinner in my quiet kitchen, I go to therapy sessions, I make small plans, my own plans. No one dictates who I am. Finally, I realize that freedom isn't noisy. It's the quiet, steady hum of a life that belongs to no one but myself.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं ये जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते हैं कहाँ जाऊं कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू मेरी रूह का मका तू लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा मगर खामोश है दुनिया कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर